YouTube. Hey, listen, man. Y'all know what time it is. It's time for another video review. And it's been a while since I've done one on a scope. And this one is sort of a new kid on the block that's been making a lot of waves around town, if you will. This is the K328i from Kahles. If you're not familiar, this is their latest offering for a full-featured tactical scope. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the fucking ugly with this thing, all right? As you guys know, I always keep my reviews 100% honest and have used this scope in a multitude of matches already. So without further ado, let's just fucking jump right in. And man, is there a deep spot to jump in on this massive fucking ocular. So we'll just start from the back and work our way to the front, talk about the likes, the dislikes, and then give you my overall thoughts at the end of the video. So feature set is, first off, fast focus eyepiece. So this is just basically, like any other fast focus, just twist, whatever, with no witness marks or any indication marks. If you go back to my Razor 3 video review, the Razor 3 has like witness marks, so you can kind of index where you're at in case if it ever gets knocked or bumped or whatever. This one doesn't have that, so you'll have to like Sharpie or tape it or something if you want to be extra secure about it, because it just kind of twists. So something to keep in mind there. Moving forward, we've got the magnification ring. Decent tension on it. It's not as smooth as like the 5-25 DLR, but it's not bad. I mean, it's certainly got a much wider band for it, but I would probably want a throw lever. Now, clearly this ocular is massive, and I'll touch on that in a little bit later, but I don't know of anyone that makes a throw lever currently for this massive eyepiece. So at some point, I'm sure MK Machining or somebody will 3D print one, but currently there are none available that I know of at the time of this recording. So just be aware, it's a little stiff, but I mean, with that much room for purchase, it's certainly not bad. All right. Forward of that, new for Kahles is a 36mm tube. They're sort of following in the footsteps of ZCO and Tangent, as much as they may or may not want to fucking hear that. ZCO was kind of the first one to popularize the 36mm tube, and the Tangent 7-35 is also a 36mm tube. Now, granted, there's only so many different sizes you can make a tube, so you know it's not. It is what it is. But it sort of gives you a little bit more internal room. That would be the main reason to go with a 36mm tube. It's not a light thing or anything like that. I wish we could put an end to that myth that tube size dictates light transmission. But anyway, I digress. Okay, then we have the center section. This is the DLR 328. So this is going to be your 10 mils per turn, with your second rev indicator is still the red pin that pops up. You've got 2 locking set screws here to zero out the turret. Just loosen those, turn back to 0, bada bing, bada boom. And you can go 3 clicks below 0. It's an internally set 0 stop, so you cannot switch it to something else. It is by default -3 or 3/10 below. You have your Parallax, center-mounted Parallax, which is a Kahles sort of staple. They've always done that. I believe they have the patent for that. And that is a 20-meter minimum. So this will work for rim fires and things of that nature, air guns, all right, all the way to infinity. And uses probably, I'd say, like 80% of the revolution to accomplish that, all right? Left side windage. So as a right-handed shooter, left side windage to me is absolutely awesome. I love it. And if given the option, I would never go back to a right side windage. I wouldn't. Like, if the other scopes that I like came in a left side, I would sell all of these and go left side windage only, especially for me because I've been dialing a ton more wind lately, and even to the point where I'm literally dialing wind for each individual target. Normally, I'll dial in a base wind and then hold the difference for each target. depending on what I need. But with something like this, it's just that much easier to dial an exact wind so you can hold precisely on the reticle. And especially in PRS these days, with targets just getting smaller and props just getting a little bit more difficult, you know, you want to have as precise an aiming point as possible, and nothing will ever be as precise as that center dot. So being able to dial wind, and not only that, but just to like look and make sure that you don't accidentally have any wind dialed in if you don't want any. So I love left side windage. Obviously, that's a challenge for other companies to do, based on where you're going to have to then mount the parallax or how that's going to work. But I wish that somebody could figure out how to do that. So anyway, left side windage. Obviously, right side windage is an option. I would only encourage that if you're a lefty, because again, I believe that you want your windage on your strong side, whatever side that is for you. If that in turn means that your illumination flips to the other side and it's just a rheostat, which I think is great because 99% of the time you're never even going to use the illumination, so it'll sit on the side that you never really pay attention to, which I think is absolutely great. So I've just always really liked the Kahles like center saddle setup. I think it's great, and the more that I have used it, especially as I sort of grow in my preferences and things like that, I learn to appreciate a setup like this even more. All right. Forward of that, we have a very short tube section of body, which I will definitely touch on in a moment. And then it extends out to the objective. And this is a 50 millimeter objective, not a 56. This is a 50. So for reference, here's a 56 mil objective. 56 mil objective. All right. This is a 56 mil objective. 56 mil objective. 56 mil objective. 50. The reason that I'm emphasizing that is I have no idea why they picked a 50. Okay. So that's the basics of this scope. It's decently light. It's like 30, I want to say 34 and change ounces if I remember correctly. I may be off an ounce or two, but it's right in that range. So not terribly heavy, and it's obviously short, very short. So here is that. This is my tangent, 5 to 25. This is ZCO 8 to 40. This is a Night Force 7 to 35. I mean, good God, look at the differences in these fucking scopes, man. So, you know, it's short. It's short. And whether that's a good thing or not, we'll get into in a little bit. So that is the objective features of this scope. And now we'll just kind of get into my likes and dislikes, and we'll start from the back forward. This scope is priced expensive. It's priced in tier 1 over $4,000. I will get to the price point and all that at the end of the video and my overall thoughts. But when you're priced in that range and you're competing with tier 1, tangent, ZCO, etc., you need to come with it. And something that I want to touch on briefly that they didn't take from the 5 to 25 K5 to 25 model is the raised magnification number. So if you look here, the magnification numbers are etched flush to the ocular housing here, right? So when you're behind the scope, you have no idea what magnification you're on because you have to like look up to see it, right? Okay. If you look at the old 5 to 25, I shouldn't say old, but the 5 to 25 DLRs, or even just the regular 5 to 25s, this band where the numbers are is raised, right? I no longer have a 5 to 25, but it allowed you to see exactly what magnification you were on while you were behind the rifle scope. And not that that's a huge deal, but you already had it. So I don't understand why you would take it away. I do think it's a nice touch. And when we're talking about tier 1 scopes, you want to have those little refinements that try to set you apart. So locking diopter would be one, not a deal breaker, but something nice to have. The raised numbers would be nice to have, but not a deal breaker by any stretch. The ocular housing, my God, in and of itself is absolutely massive. It looks more like an LPVO than an actual fucking rifle scope. And if you guys watched my SHOT Show, like initial impressions of this, if not, go back and look at it. But you'll remember that I said that this thing was absolutely ginormous. Absolutely ginormous. So for reference, here's my ZCO. And for those of you that have tried or know someone that has or thought about it, a trigger cam barely fits on a ZCO. That's how big the eyepiece is. It has to go on with no shims, and you have to stretch the housing and get a longer clamp screw in order to make it fit on a ZCO. Look at this. So obviously a ZCO already had probably like one of the largest diameter oculars before this fucking thing. Look at this. Ready? Bam. It's like a fucking puzzle piece. This one literally fits inside of this one. Y'all see that? Like literally inside of it. Like that is crazy. So needless to say, a trigger cam will not fit on the K328i. It's literally massive than more massive than the actual trigger cam itself. Not that a ton of you guys probably care about that aspect, but just to give you a size reference, this thing is so wide and big that 90-degree actions that have enough slop in them will hit the fucking eyepiece. It's crazy. You can get very close and you will fucking smash your fingers on a 90-degree action with this scope with an action that has enough like slop in it, bolt slop. You'll fucking smash your fingers into this thing when you're just fucking running it. I did not run into that issue. I don't have any 90-degree actions that I shoot on a regular basis, but I know people that have. So just something to be aware of. As far as the rest of it, I mean, other than just looking goofy as fuck with having this massive, and I don't even know if like the video can really portray like how gargantuan this thing is. Like you just kind of have to see it. But the eyepiece is gonna sort of help with that massive field of view that they have, which they do in fact have, and help it with eye box and eye relief and things like that to make it easier to get behind, because for some reason they just decided to make it really fucking short. So I don't like the fact that I can't run a trigger cam on it. I don't like the fact that there's no locking diopter. And I don't like the fact that they removed the raised edge that had the magnification numbers on it. Are all those deal breakers? Only the trigger cam is. So you won't see me running this scope anytime soon until trigger cam comes out with one big enough to fit on this thing. Other than that, sorry guys. I've ran it and put it through its paces and no more. I can't fucking film anything. Okay. Forward of that 36 mil tube, I don't care because obviously I have mounts and rings from my ZCOs, so that's not an issue. For some of you that only have 36 mil tube scopes and are looking to get into this, just be aware that may or may not be a pro or a con that you have to buy a new mount for. This particular scope, being that it is 36 mil, I didn't have an issue with that. What I did have an issue with is how shallow or how short this forward mounted section is, or this tube section forward of the center saddle. I mean, it's basically nothing. And the problem is that like certain mounts, like a spur with a top rail will interfere with the parallax. So you have very limited mounting space here. And the eye relief is so big on this thing that really what you want to do is you want to run a cantilever mount on this, like legit. And truthfully, I think the best cantilever mount for this scope specifically, and ironically, the guys that got one of these first and put it through its paces first and reviewed it first are the guys that make it, and that's Area 419. They have a cantilever mount that's not as aggressive as a traditional AR cantilever mount, but it's enough of an offset, almost perfectly fitting this scope. Wink, wink, cough, cough. Maybe they made it specifically for this fucking scope because they may have run into the same issue. So I would definitely go that direction. I was gonna run this with individual Hawkins rings. I mean, obviously I did, and I thought that individual rings would give me enough play to move it forward or backward to fit on the rifle the way that I wanted it to. And I could have moved it a smidge, but I mean, like, there's really not a ton of room for me to move this one way or the other. Really, I needed to move this ring back so I could push the scope forward, because this was already sitting on my Curtis Action in the most forward pick rail, and I was still kind of crammed behind it. Like, I kind of had to do one of these, like, to not get like scope shadow being too close to it. So really, the Area 419, if I was going to run this on a regular basis, would probably be the way that I go. Certain mounts to watch out for when running this particular scope is going to be things that have a wide distance between the two rings, something like a Gray Ops or a Badger, for example, that have a wide spacing between the two rings, because what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to push, and they have a wide base. They take up a lot of rail slots on an Action. You're not going to be able to push it far forward enough to run this scope with the eye relief properly, unless you've got like a crazy length of pull or some shit. But yeah, so mounting options, not great. Just not great. Yeah, I thought that individual rings would get me there, but they didn't. So yeah, like I said, if I was going to run this full time, I'd run the Area 419 bolt action cantilever. So if you go on their website, they actually have two cantilever mounts, one for an AR that's like more offset, and then a modest one for bolt action, which basically just for this fucking scope. But having said that, I don't have a problem with the 36 mil tube. And then we move forward of that, and we have a 50 mil objective. Now, why they decided to go with a 50 mil objective, I will never know, and I will never understand. And even if they tried to explain it to me, I will say that that's dumb. Because to me, there is no logical explanation as to why they would go with a 50 mil tube. Let me tell you, from my understanding at SHOT Show, this was marketed as a hunting scope for the European market. My problem with that is that no hunter is going to want to run this fucking thing. And I take that back. Some of you will, but those of you that will run this weren't opposed to running like a full-featured tactical scope. Like, you guys would probably run the 5-25 DLR. You guys would probably run a 7-35 attacker. Like, you're willing to go away from the normal like hunting scope, if you will, that's like super light and like capped elevation, capped windage, you know, like the super traditional ones. You know, you might run like a ZCO 4-20 or a Night Force 4-20 or one of those, like, you know, even the 3-18 Kahles. Like, you guys are willing to do that, go a little bit heavier, a little bit longer, bigger body tube diameter, things like that. You guys are willing to make those compromises. To me, this isn't a fucking hunting scope. Like, 3-28? What the fuck? Like, that's just a massive erector ratio for no reason. Like, so truthfully, this is a tactical scope. This is a full-fledged tactical scope and a competition scope to me. It's sort of light, but not really. Like, it's not Leupold Mark V light. It's not 30 ounces. Okay, so like if you're looking for a crossover, like with taking weight into consideration, the Mark V weight-wise is a better option. Not glass and all that, but just from a weight perspective, is a better option. And okay, So once you got that out the way, why would you go with a 50 mil objective? Like, if someone is willing to put up with the weight of this scope on a hunting rig, they're probably willing to put up with the extra ounces of a 56 mil objective to get that performance versus a 50 mil objective. The only time a 50 mil objective kind of comes into play is going to be like if you're going to put this on like a top, or a rifle with a full top rail, like an AR or like an AI or something like that. You can just get by with lower rings, but I mean, fuck, like, chances are you're probably going to have to buy something because a spur doesn't really fucking fit on this thing either. So if you got to buy a mount for this thing, you can just buy the Area 419 mount at like 1.5 inches high, 1.54 inches high. And even if it had a fucking 56 mil objective, you'd clear the top rail. So, okay. What? And then you make it short, right? So high erector ratio in a short overall length. Even if you do have a 36 mil tube, like, you're still cramming a lot. This is an 8 times erector ratio essentially. And why are we making it short? Like, okay, so the guys that run like thermals and clip-ons can have some room in the front. That's fine. But is that a big enough market to warrant like making it this short? I don't know. Maybe I'm really out of touch, but I don't think so. To me, this is a competition tactical scope. And so what they should have done was they should have just made the length whatever, like put no cap on it, 16, 17 inches, whatever, it doesn't matter, with a 56 mil objective. And I think that would have been a winner. Now, I'm not saying that this is a loser, but I'm not saying that it's a grade A winner either. Like, aside from the fact that I can't run a trigger cam on this, it looks goofy as all fuck. And so it looks really unproportional. And I know looks shouldn't matter a ton, but pretty much 99% of all the guys that I've seen run this fucking scope have bought the sunshade to put on the front end. Not because you actually need it, just so it looks a little bit more proportional, which is fucking sad. The objective is basically the same size as the ocular. Like, what the fuck is that? Now, the eye box is pretty decent. Like, it's not, for a erector ratio this high, like, it's not nearly as picky as some of the other scopes that I've used that have high erector ratios. So, to be fair, they did a good job with that. And every time I got behind it, it was super easy to find the eye box. Not really any issues like on any of like the wobbly props or anything like that. So that was really good. And the field of view is absolutely massive. Field of view at 20 power, as marked by the scope. So after 10 mils, the Skimmer 4 Plus, which is what's in here, only has full mil marks. But just using a little hillbilly, comparison, just stick your hash mark here, measure 2/10, and then kind of roll it over when you don't have, like when you have a ruler that's too short. You do that, and you get basically 12.2 mils on each side, 12.3-ish maybe, but 12.2 for sure mils on each side of this scope. So whatever scope you have at home, crank it up to 20 power. Or as close to 20 power if you don't have a 20 marking. And, then you can compare the field of view. It's absolutely massive on this thing. Inadvertently, like I just cranked it till it looked good, but inadvertently, I ended up shooting most of the stages at like 24, 25 power. And I was like, holy shit. Like, I didn't have any problems finding targets or anything like that. So the field of view is really nice to have. Really, really nice to have. And again, I am one that is gravitating towards shooting at a higher power. So even my other scopes, like my ZCOs, tangents, and etc., I am shooting between 20 and 22 power these days. And I really like that. but having the extra field of view and being able to crank even further than that to like 25 and still be like, damn, yeah, this is nice. It's impressive, man. I gotta say, hats off to them. It is impressive. Having said that, one issue that I kind of ran into, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, but so the Skimmer 4 Plus and the Skimmer Plus are the new reticles that are only available in this 3-28. So obviously they were designed with this 3-28 in mind and scaled appropriately. My issue that I ran into was, I think, and I don't know this, but this is just from pure use case, I think they optimized the reticle to be used in the like normal PRS ranges, like 15 to 18 power. And so like, let me put it at 15 right now. Like, it looks really good at 15 power, like really, really good at 15 power. For those of you wondering, you've got a little over 15 mils on each side at 15 power. That is absolutely fucking bonkers. No, excuse me, 16. You've got 16, almost 16 and a half mils on each side at 15 power. That's disgusting. That's huge. But being that you have this extra field of view, essentially you're encouraged to shoot at a higher power, which is appropriate because you've got more field of view. So that's great. Like, I don't necessarily, like, if you have this scope, I don't necessarily want you shooting it at 15 power, because at some point you just have too much field of view that's not doing you a ton. What you want is to be able to find a comfortable field of view and shoot at the power that gives you that field of view. So for example, my ZCO here, this is the 8-40, and at 20 power, I've got about 10 mils on each side on this 8-40, right? So if I do that and just crank this up until I've got 10 mils each side, because I can comfortably shoot this 8-40 at 20 power with 10 mils on each side, I crank it up, and look at that. This is where the Kahles is. Like, that's got to be like 26 power, where I've got 10 mils on each side, right? So that is how I encourage people to kind of take the approach of using this scope. Having said that, if you take that methodology, the reticle is too thick. I don't think it was optimized for those higher magnifications. Like, one match, I was shooting Dasher with 109s, and I had a target that was at like 600 and change, and like, I wish I could show you guys, but the trigger cam obviously doesn't fucking fit, so I can't show you guys, which sucks. But so it was basically like an IPSC type target, and it was on a berm that basically was just covered in like shrub. So it's one of those that like just eats your fucking bullet. I'm sure you guys all know what I'm talking about. So I take my first shot, and the rifle, I mean, it's a fucking Dasher, and it was like, it's like a 23-pound Dasher, so I don't move for shit. And I missed my first shot, but I couldn't really tell where I missed. Like, I thought I saw something off the right, so I was like, okay, let me give it a little more wind, and took my second shot, and I saw like the uprising of the cloud, but the actual impact was being blocked by the horizontal stadia because I was shooting at a high power. Now, again, I'm telling you, this rifle did not move. Like, it went straight back and forward. And that's a combination of heavy rifle, caliber, and a great fucking muzzle brake. But that's just, truthfully, that's what it is. And so I missed the second shot, and then corrected even more for the third shot, and then proceeded to get the rest of my 8 impacts. But the issue was that I couldn't pick up that first miss because it was being blocked by the horizontal stadia. And even the second one, I caught the updraft of the dust signature. Like, I didn't see like the actual like spall off the dirt, but I saw the updraft of the dirt. So I was like, oh shit, okay, well, I'm still off the right. Boom, let me add more. So I guess the problem with doing what want them to do is that the reticle would become really thin at like 12, 15 power. But with this much extra field of view, I would encourage guys to shoot at higher than that. Like if you're a 15 power shooter, shoot this at 18 to 20. If you're an 18 to 20 power shooter, shoot this at 20 to 25. If you're a 25 power guy, crank this bitch to 28 and shoot it at 28. And that's how I would sort of market this scope, that it allows you, because you want to, with how small targets are getting these days, that extra zoom is important, because for a long time, but especially now, hits on the plate are not good enough. Center hits are good enough. You just hitting the plate a bunch of times and getting impact, but you're riding the right edge the whole time, for example, is not good enough, because one gust and you're off the side. So I don't want to go on a whole like tangent off of that, but that's kind of the approach that I would take with this scope. So I would like to see them kind of tweak that. Obviously, it's probably far too late for that. Maybe they can introduce a new reticle that's kind of made for that. But that was just something that I ran into. And I don't know, maybe I'm just fucking crazy and I don't know how to shoot, but that was something that I definitely noticed. All right. Another thing I noticed, and I guess that's, again, just a byproduct of cramming a lot of scope into a small fucking package. The Parallax was a little bit pickier than I would like. Now, I'm not saying it was bad. It wasn't like my March 5 to 42 that I had. That one was pretty rough. Or even the older Marches, I had a 3 to 24 that was really rough. Super picky on Parallax. I'm coming from a ZCO in a tangent where I basically don't have to touch my Parallax for an entire match. And this one I did a couple stages have to adjust the Parallax. So, you know, it's not bad, but again, when you're at that 4,000 plus price point, you're directly competing with these guys, and you need to be just as good in all of those categories, if not better. But you can't be worse. Otherwise, you got to have something else that makes it up. And I guess the field of view is supposed to make up for all the deficiencies, but I mean, me personally, even if the trigger cam fit on here, like, I would still want to see like the other improvements to make this more competitive with these scopes. So other than that, I don't have like a ton of complaints, because Kahles has always had a pretty good setup on their scopes. Glass quality is something that people are going to ask about, and where does it compare, especially to these two, because it's in that same sort of ballpark price. It's really good, man. It's really, really good. Now, are there certain aspects where it's not quite as good? Sure. But are there aspects where it's better? Sure. Obviously, namely field of view, it's much better than either of these two. It's better than anything else on the market in this segment. So you got that going for it. Where I noticed a slight sort of drop-off, if you will, in optical performance, and again, sample size of 1, so, you know, take it for what it's worth, is just when, like, the edge-to-edge clarity is good laterally, but I feel like the bottom edge gets a little bit of ghosting when you're cranking it up at a high power, which, to be fair, most scopes lose some image quality. There's some sort of image degradation as you go higher in power. And, you know, I really noticed that. So the way I have this zeroed, I had this zeroed for my dasher, is where I shot it last. That's 10. And I've got 20, what is that, 21.8 mils, essentially. And what I noticed was, like, in this, like, sort of second revolution, now maybe I just need a more aggressive base on it. But obviously there's plenty of travel left, but I felt like there was a little bit of, like, image quality breakdown in that bottom edge, like literally right at the edge. But also, to be fair, how many times are you looking at that bottom edge? So take that for what it's worth. Throughout the magnification range, it held it held up well. Like, there's other scopes that I have that once they get past a certain magnification power, there's just like a steep drop off in image quality, and you know that shit always sucks. This one held the image together really well throughout the range, which was nice to see. Depth of field, like I said, the Parallax was a smidge pickier than I'd like. So in saying that, like, depth of field was good. It was good. Not tangent level good, but it was good. And again, like, it's just hard, man, because I want this scope to be like 3 inches longer with a 56 mil objective, and I think you'd have a fucking winner. But keeping in mind that this is a short, compact scope, it's probably about as good as I would expect it to be. Which I mean, I would still have high standards for it just based on price point and based on, you know, Kahles in general, knowing how to make a relatively good rifle scope. But yeah, when you compare it to like a full-size scope, like a tangent, depth of field is not quite there, but it's, yeah, it's certainly more than usable for like PRS and stuff like that. You're not gonna suffer because of it. It's not a super flat image, a la like Razer Gen 2, which is just like flat. Okay. Other than that, man, I don't have like a ton. It is $4,300. Okay, so I said I would talk about price point. It's $4,300. You are then playing directly with ZCO and Tangent. Tangent is more. Tangent is 5,000 plus, but ZCO, both of them are cheaper. So the ZCO 5-27 at Mile High is 4,050 or 4,075, one of those two. And the 8-40 10 mil NLE turret with the 1X reticle is 4,250. So I mean, yeah, 4,300, like it's like $50, but the point is like you're literally right there at the price point. You're a couple $100 more than the 5-27, and you're like 50, $75 more than the 8-40, but you're literally right in that direct comparison. So regardless of the fact that this is a short 3.5 to 28, you know, scope, you're gonna get thrown into the comparisons with the fucking the long 8-40 that's just like a fuck all like full featured tactical scope. We don't care how long and we don't care how heavy. We're just gonna make a hell of a good scope and figure out the rest after that. Like, you're automatically in that category. Same thing with the Tangent, right? Like, who cares what it weighs and who cares how long it is? We're gonna just make the best thing we can make, and that's it. So I don't want to give you a ranking just yet compared to these two specifically, because that review is coming, I promise you, and this one is going to be included in that big scope review. And I will tell you that if you've made it this far in the video, this is a little nugget for those of you that actually watch the whole thing. That review will be out by the end of this year. I promise you. I guarantee it will be out by the end of the year, the big scope review. So, having said that, I will not compare it directly. What I will say is that it's admittedly a really nice scope, regardless of how you feel about Kahles and you know, the whole patent thing and all of that, or if you just have you know, a bad experience with them, a sour taste in your mouth from other scopes maybe you had bad experiences with. I haven't personally had bad experiences with their scopes, but I know people that have just been kind of turned off to them in general. But this is admittedly just a good scope. It is. Again, there are things to be improved on, and truthfully, yeah, I think this is a scope that absolutely nobody fucking asked for. Not a single fucking person asked for, like, a scope that's this heavy and this short with a 50 mil objective, and, you know, but I do think that they kind of broke ground on something, which was that field of view, which I think more and more manufacturers need to start paying attention to and try to figure out their own way to accomplish some of those things. So those are my thoughts on the 3-28. And feel free to drop any comments, questions, concerns down below. I will try to answer as many of them as I can. If you see me at a match, feel free to ask me about it and all those sorts of things. And yeah, that's pretty much the K328i in a nutshell. Not much else to say about it. So I'll let you guys get out of here, and I appreciate you guys for watching. Please hit the follow or the subscribe button, whatever. Just kind of helps get these videos and information to as many people as possible. Because that's why we're here. We want to help you guys before you go and spend $4,300 and decide you don't like it. Try to give you as much information as possible, because I know for a lot of people, they don't have an opportunity necessarily to get their hands on these scopes, or most stores don't have these on the fucking shelf where you can just walk in a Turner's or a Sportsman's or some shit. You're not just gonna walk in and be like, hey, there's a 328, let me look at that thing. So just want to get the information out to as many people as possible and help you guys make that decision. All right. But yeah, that's it, man. That's all I got for you guys, and I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.